parent workshop is the extension of the two-day program, children's program that was carried out on 13 and 14 December 2021. We hope this workshop will be beneficial to you parents, and to make this workshop an engaging and interactive one for you, we have activities such as quizzes and polling for you to participate in. Best of all, you stand a chance to win e-vouchers too. So get your mobile devices ready to scan the QR codes and key in game pin during our workshop. To unpack the learning on child holistic development, we are privileged to have with us on board the panel of speakers today. We have Dr. Mercy Michael as well as Ms. Suraya Saidon, who are actually very qualified and invested in the topic for today. Without further ado, let me introduce to you our first speaker for today, Dr. Mercy Michael. Dr. Mercy Michael has over 20 years of experience in teaching and training in Singapore. She has taught in both secondary and tertiary institutions. She holds a postgraduate diploma in education from NIE and graduated with a master's in English Studies from National University of Singapore and a master's in early childhood education from Nanyang Technological University in 2007. Dr. Mercy earned her Doctor of Philosophy in Early Childhood Education from NIE NTU in 2016. She is currently a lecturer in Psychology, Child and Human Development, PCHD, academic group at NIE. Her research interests include child development, family studies, homeschool partnerships, parenting in urban settings, and research methodologies. Apart from her academic interests, she enjoys fiction reading and writing, playing with her 3-year-old, and cooking fusion-style dishes. So let us now welcome Dr. Mercy to share her presentation for today. Dr. Mercy, please.
I want to share with you today my thoughts on learning dispositions. For me, learning dispositions are quite an important element when it comes to enabling lifelong learners. So we need to really understand what dispositions are. And it's important to know that these dispositions can actually be applied to various domains, not just in the academic, but basically to any sort of learning that a child has to do. So there are a variety of dispositions. And today I want to introduce the idea of dispositions to you. Some of you may already know this somewhat. And I want to talk a little bit more about dispositions in some depth. And I want to specifically look at two dispositions that I think are fundamental for good learning to happen. And that would be curiosity and perseverance. So let me just take you through my thoughts for today. So today I've entitled my presentation to you as The Curious Child, which is creating the dispositions to continuous learning in your child. So the key word here is continuous learning. And learning as in learning of all sorts of things, all skills and knowledge, rather than just the academic sphere. So I need you to expand your minds a little and look at learning in a general way rather than school-based learning. Okay, so let's go. So they've already introduced me, so I just wanted to say hello. So here I am. Right, so this is our first activity, everyone, and I've tried to design this 15-minute talk as interactive as possible. And I really need to bring you to participate in the issues that I'm raising up to you, right? So this is the first task that we are going to do, and I want you to think about this. All right. So imagine that this child whose picture I have on the screen for you is actually your child, right? Imagine that this child is your child, and imagine he is doing this drawing activity. What do you think is going on in his or her mind when doing this activity? So what do you think your child will be thinking about if your child has been given a blank space like this and a box of chalk? What would your child be doing, right? So think about these few key ideas. Number one, how would he or she respond to this open call? It's an open call because it's a blank surface. It's a white surface, and the child gets to do what the child wants to do with it. There are no restrictions. The only thing here, the medium is the chalk, and there's a wide open space. So what would your child do if she had some chalk and wide open space? That's the first thing that I want you to think about, all right? Now, what would she be drawing? Okay, and how big a drawing would it be? Would she take up all the space, or would she do a little drawing in the middle or the side? What kind of attitude would she take to drawing? All right. Now, how would she go about doing this? Would she stand aside for a while and think before she draws? Or do you think she'll be turning around and looking at what other children are doing to get an idea of how to move forward? Or would she just go straight ahead and say, I got a piece of chalk and now I'm going to draw, and then she gets up to drawing? What would your child do? So I want you to spend about maybe 3 seconds and think about this, all right? And keep that idea in your mind, because we'll return to this again. All right, so let's do that quickly. Have a quick 1 or 2 words in your head about your child's response to such an open-ended activity or invitation. Okay. All right. So what are dispositions? So dispositions are habits of mind. All right. And in a singular sentence, it would mean attitudes and values and habits towards learning. Habits towards learning. These are cultivated habits, are not unique. They're actually cultivated. You learn it, right? So these are attitudes and values and habits that a child or a person, disposition affects everyone, not just children, right? That they have towards learning. So that's the definition for it, everyone. I also want to clarify a couple of things. Now, does a disposition equal temperament? Okay. The answer is no. A disposition is very different from what is a genetic predisposition or the temperament, right? So when we look at temperament can be defined as a characteristic or a habitual inclination or mode or an emotional response to something. So just now when I asked you to think about that open-ended activity, what would be the emotional response of your child, the immediate emotional response? Most of the time, that can give you some indication to their temperament, what we call a genetic predisposition. All right. But a disposition, the ones that we want to develop in a child, they are above and beyond the temperament that the child is born with, right? So what are dispositions? They're actually acquired early, and they form a part of the child's motivation to explore their world. So a disposition is tied to how they experience the world. All right. And they are acquired from and affected by interactive experiences with the environment, what is available around them, significant adults, meaning you and your family members, extended family members, and also their friends. So a disposition is something that we can develop in our children to learn in a more effective way. So this can be fostered and they can learn and they're taught. Just remember, you cannot do drill and practice, kind of like do worksheet on disposition, okay? We can't do that. This has got to be done in a holistic way where the child is immersed in a particular environment and we intentionally ask the child to think in a certain way. It cannot be done in a drill and practice. So remember that this disposition creation takes time and effort and a lot of intentional will on the part of parents, okay? So that's important. So these are some things I think we need to know when we are looking at creating learning children. So we want children to learn. There are certain attitudes that they need to develop from very young, all right? And these are the few. Daniel Goleman lists these, and I think it's a fantastic list, okay? So we have confidence, curiosity, intentionality, self-control, relatedness, communication, and cooperativeness. Okay, these are overall skills that a child would need to have in order to be an effective learner. My focus for today's discussion are these 3 that I've highlighted in blue for you, which is curiosity, intentionality, and self-control. So these are very important tenets to a learner, a sustained learner, okay? So the first one is this thing about curiosity. If I want to learn anything at all, anyone, I need to be curious about something. Something needs to spark my interest. I need to develop this knack for curiosity. Curiosity is important because it leads us on the path to exploration. So we need to have curiosity. But not all children are curious, or rather all children are curious, but not many act on their curiosity. Okay? So we need to get children curious about their lives, the people, the events, the environment around them in order to create this, robustness for learning. All right. So that's curiosity. The thing is this. If I want learning to be long-lasting and learning to be sustained, I can't be having interest in everything that strikes my eye. I need to have an intentionality or rather purpose in what I'm doing. So I need to be purposefully engaged in something, right? To do that, I need self-control. If I get interested in everything that crosses my mind, I'm distracted so easily, I cannot be a learner. I cannot be a sustained learner. I need to know how to be self-control. So for me, I think if I'm looking at the key basics to create a a learner who is, effective, is there has got to be some inspiration or curiosity or a spark. There needs to be a focus and there needs to be perseverance. Okay, so I wanted to highlight that to you. Okay, let me move on. Claxon and Carr talk about learning dispositions as default responses. You don't really stop to think too much about it. You just get right into you do this without thinking. That is your default response. And all of us have default responses in the presence of uncertain learning opportunities and circumstances. Like the activity that I told you to think about just now, the whole white space and drawing, right? The typical response your child would give would probably be a disposition that he has towards new things, right? So now, can I ask you to drop the one or two words, like, how does your child typically respond to new circumstances, object, people, and events with that starter activity that we did? Can I get some parents to put in, one or two words about the default response that your child may give? And we could put that in the chat so that we could see. Can I ask you to share in the chat? If possible. Am I seeing anything? I can't see my chat. These are the first few things that your child just typically does this. Excited and apprehensive at the same time. Saiful says that. Yeah. So you will find that your child would get very excited about some things, but then when you ask them to go ahead and start with something, there's a little bit of fear and they will stop, they will stall. So that's something that we can work on. We can create the disposition to be more explorative, right? So we can do that, draw something familiar to them or look at what others do. Yeah. So they fall back on the familiar, which also means that sometimes when a new experience comes along, they may not holistically engage, right? So we might want to look at how we can encourage him to engage. Fareha says he will ask to refer to something to draw first. So he's looking for a template and then he will draw from there. So that means that we need to now encourage him to get a little bit more creative and think out of the box. So we can do that, right? So Liani says that she's enthusiastic and asks tons of questions. Yeah, so this child is what we would say she has that interest to move forward and do what she needs to do immediately. Azari's child says takes a chalk to draw. So there is that interest to pursue. And then Radila says she asks questions. So these are indications, everyone, of how your child would actually respond to something new. And that is a disposition that child has already, or this is the disposition that we have you have sort of encouraged in that child. Sometimes it's temperamentals. We may have children who are very introverted. When they are very introverted, they may not immediately take the chalk and draw. They may stand back, they may look around, they would see what other people are doing. They may sit for a while and they think and then they'll do it. They are not inclined to immediately take something and go. So there are good bits and not so good bits with any personality, whether it's an extroverted personality or an introverted personality. So we need to know what our child does by default so that we can encourage our child to develop other ways of being, which is what dispositions are all about, all right? Okay, let me quickly move on. If not, I'll be here the whole time, all right? So let me just give you a really quick tie-up of what a disposition is. It's a tendency to exhibit frequently, consciously, and voluntarily a pattern of behavior that is directed to a broad goal. So now I want you to think about, everyone, your child in mind, her temperament, her attitude to learning new things, and then your experience of living in Singapore and working in Singapore and your idea of what's going to happen in the next maybe 30 years or 50 years, I want you to think of one lifelong skill you think your child needs to develop in order to be an effective learner. Okay, one lifelong skill. And that skill is something that you as a parent can help her to build. So this skill is lifelong. It's going to stand her through all different learning experiences throughout her journey, right? And we're looking at maybe 30, 40 years down the road. What is this one lifelong skill, right? And what can you do as a parent? So I'm getting quite a number of chat drops. Let me have a look quickly, yeah? Right, there we go. Right. Resilience and self-confidence, and asking questions, asking a lot of questions. Right. Okay, great. There's one more message, self-confidence. So great. So you already know what are these things that the child may need to have in order to build this learning that she has to do. Okay, they've been telling me that I only have 5 minutes. I have to fast do this, okay? So I think it's important, everyone, to look at the different dispositions. For me, it's like I said, curiosity, openness, optimism, resilience, perseverance, and creativity. I'm looking at curiosity and perseverance. All right. So for me, I think there is these two things, and parental scaffolding comes right in the center of it. Okay. How do I build these two things? Curiosity and perseverance. And many of the things that you've listed as lifelong goals are actually tied very closely to curiosity and perseverance. So for me, what is the parental role in it? I've done a quick summary here, open-ended, ask a lot of open-ended what if, why, and how, what else type prompts, and encouragement to try, and then also the opportunity to share. Okay. So actually you need to be the enabler, because anything that the child is learning to do new is actually within the relationships that the child is in. So you need to give them the encouragement. Your responses to any new thing that they try will give them the signal of whether that's a good disposition to have or not. So you need to be an enabler. Now, in order to be an enabler, you sometimes have to grow your own disposition. Like, for example, curiosity. A lot of parents don't like to say, I don't know, right? Because you don't want to look like you don't know. But the thing is, we don't know everything there is to learn about the world around us. So we will have to share our curiosity and have to model how we want it to work on that curiosity. So then it's got to be a level of discussion. So here we go, people. Certain dispositions that we want to develop in our children based on their temperament and where you think they need to go. All right. We need to look at it by being observant. So observant is you. You need to observe your child very carefully on what your child can do easily and what comes a little bit more difficult for her, and how that is linked to your lifelong goals for her. Then you say, okay, I'm going to work on this particular disposition. All right. And then I want to model it. Okay. I want to model it. How does that happen? How do I actually encourage my child to get excited about things that are different? We expose her to various experiences. We actually talk about those experiences with her. And then we use a lot of imaginative play and problem solving. So that's very important. All right. So for me, I think one way to do this is to provide different experiences and a variety of them. Don't just do the same thing over and over again. Make sure the variety of experiences are both physical, intellectual, and anything that you ask them to do needs to have an emotional connect to them. All right. Right, people. So that's where I'm going to leave it. So these are the three things I think are important: physical, intellectual, and emotional connect. And that will actually help your child learn these new dispositions in a safe way, where she is encouraged rather than discouraged. And these new things will help her become better, at learning in the long run.
Thank you, Dr. Mercy, for the sharing today. I think it's very, from what I get from her sharing, I think it's very important as parents that we we model the right behavior. If we want our child to be curious, like we ourselves must show the curiosity so that they will also get to learn, oh, there is a learning disposition that we need to have in our life. So like what Dr. Mercy has said, in order to get them to develop the child child holistic development is to provide them a variety of experiences and different kind of experiences so that they can develop even more. How can we as parents support our child's learning of financial literacy, which is one aspect of child holistic development? We are pleased to have with us our second speaker, Ms. Suraya Saidon, to share with us on how to raise financially stable kids. Ms. Suraya Saidon is a mother of 2 grown-up children in their 20s. She is also a veteran early childhood educator who has 34 years of experience behind her. Currently, she is holding a senior lecturer position at the National Institute of Early Childhood Development, NIEC, which is dedicated to the training of early childhood educators. Her passion in early childhood drives her interest in presenting and publishing early childhood-related research, both locally and internationally. Some of her research in her early years include transition to primary school and leadership in early childhood setting. So let us now welcome Ms. Suraya. Ms. Suraya, please.
Thank you so much, Afifa. Okay, sound check. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum to all my Muslim friends and good morning to everyone else. Thank you for being here. I know you're all very busy and yet you decide to spend time here. Now, I'm very much a storyteller. If you can actually switch on your webcam, that'll be helpful. If not, it's totally fine, okay? Because I like to see the faces that faces of people I'm speaking to. But if it's not convenient for you, then it's totally fine with me. Okay, I'm honored to be invited today, and I wish when my children were growing up, I had such a program. As you can see from the video, it was a fantastic program, and I'm very wow with what they have done, really, truly. Okay, they had done a very wonderful job. When my children were growing up, I was looking for ways in how I can actually get them to understand that money doesn't come up from the air. It comes from somewhere, somebody, right? Something. So I was looking for different tips to actually encourage them to save money. And if I were to do this sharing way back during the days that I'm raising my children, people would think that I'm crazy because how would you even do this? How do you even raise children who are financially stable? But today, alhamdulillah, I would like to believe that my children are. And I'm going to share with you as parents and also an early child educator, how you can do this at home with your children. But before I do that, can I just get you to help me with this poll? Give me a minute. Oops, sorry. On a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with financial literacy for young children, especially before you know of this program? So what I have done is I have QR code. You can also join via the link that I'm going to share with you on the chat. So if you can take some time to do the survey, I will really appreciate that. Okay, so just 1 minute to do this, please. Thank you, everyone. Wow. Very good. Responding and coming in. Great. Most of you at 3. I'll see a 4 now. Awesome. Anybody at 5? Most of you at 3 and 2. Oh, I see someone at 5. Wonderful. Anyone coming in? No, is that it? Okay, thank you for responding. As you can see from the poll, are you able to see my poll? Yes? Okay, great. Most of you said that you are at 3. Some of you said you're at 2 and 1, and I have a few at 5 and 4, which is excellent because it shows no matter at what level you are, it shows that you have a lot of interest in sharing financial literacy with your children. And that is the greatest step that any parents can take. Okay, so because if you have this mindset, highly likely you'll be successful in ensuring that your children will be raised as financially stable children in future. So let's share some tips. Now, tips number 1, there is a need for us to actually share with children what are the difference between needs and wants. How do we do that? There are many, many storybooks out there that you can purchase and share with your children, or even borrow from the library, to read and share with the children. A lot of times when I speak to parents, they always have this thinking, my children are too young. What do they understand about wants and tips? How do I even do this? Well, children are never too young to understand. You'll be surprised what your children will be able to tell you. Okay, like what I was saying, there's many, many ways in doing this. Attending this workshop is one. Getting your children to attend the program by Yaa Bunayya is one. But there are many storybooks out there that you can actually borrow and read to your children. And these two are just some examples. There are also a lot of videos. If you just Google or search on YouTube, there's plenty of videos for children to understand the difference between wants and needs. You can show children of, a picture of children in a war-torn country, for example, and start asking them, what do you think are the needs of the children in the picture? Do they need a game console? Do they need toys? Do they need this? Do they need that? You'll be surprised what your children will be able to tell you then. Because to differentiate between needs and wants can be complex for a young child. But if you are able to give them a lot of examples, you'll see the results. When you ask them again, what is your needs? What is your wants? They're able to tell you the difference. They're able to differentiate what they actually need and what they actually don't. And you can also give examples, like, okay, if your child were to say that I need a magic marker. Well, the $2 version from Daiso work? Or do they even need the one that is perhaps $30? Because both are doing the same thing, right? They are able to give the same result. So we need to then get children to make decisions, and they're not too young to make those things. A lot of time in Asian context, parents do not allow children to make a choice. Choice or decision are made by the parents for the children, which can be a detrimental effect on the child, because the child will have to rely on you. But when you get the child to choose between A and B, and this is something that you do on not a daily basis, but always, frequently with the children, then they learn to make those choices. When I was doing one research on early childhood, one of the things that I came across was this. We tend to make decisions for the children. We should not, okay? We should allow them to make decisions as early as possible, because with more practice, they are able to perfect whatever decision-making skills that they are going to make later in their life. So these books are excellent books. You may want to try and look for them. Or I think Yaa Bunayya has done a great job in coming out with all the materials. You can also use that. Yep. Okay, tip. Okay, please stop me if there's any question, because sometimes I tend to talk like a bullet train. Because like what I mentioned just now, I'm very much a storyteller. So I just go on and on. But if you have any question, just raise your hand, use the function, raise your hand and, ask me questions. Okay, tip number 2, setting goals. It's okay for children to sometimes have wants. We are all human beings. We cannot be telling children, oh, no, you're not supposed to choose anything from your wants list. Once in a while, you have to allow children to do so. Okay, this is to tell them that, if you have a goal, then you have to work towards that. So you have to help children to set goals. And how to set goals? Okay, this is one template that I came across online. I thought it's a very simple one. You can Google for it. You can download a copy for yourself, or make multiple copies or design your own. It doesn't have to be like this. So you need to get children to set goals. If they want a certain toy, for example, that costs about $50, write it down. My dream is to buy that toy and it costs this much. My dream is to get something that I can use for my certain project, for my art project, for my this project. Although it's not necessary, you can buy a cheaper version, but they still want a more expensive one. Get them to write it down, because these are some of their life goals. Okay, this is what they want. It's okay, yeah? Parents, don't tell the parents, cannot. Please don't choose anything from your one list. No, you're not allowed to. Please don't do that. Do allow your children to choose at least one or two of their wants and work for it. And as parents, what you need to do is to keep on checking. Check on your children. How much of their goals have they met? Are they on task? If they are not, then as parents, we need to remind them that this is what we have set to achieve. We have not achieved it. How can we get there? What else can be done? So this is how you teach children to be more focused, so that whatever they want to achieve in life, they have to set a goal first. So this does not only refer to financial issues. It can be anything in their life. If they have a goal, what are their plans? What can they do? How many days are they supposed to take to arrive at that goal? That's very important. That's long term, yes? And tip number 3, starts early. And when I know a lot of us actually encourage children to save, but one idea that I thought is very useful is to have multiple, money bank for different purposes. So children would then differentiate. Okay, for this particular money bank, I'm keeping it for my toy that I want to achieve. This one is for donations. And, those of you who want your children to start donating or in the Muslim term, zakat, to think about zakat earlier in your life, have a separate box for that, a separate money box for that. You don't have to buy it if you do not want to. You can always create that with the children. And one thing that I thought helped is, if you are really going to buy it, buy a money box that only have one way, which means you can only keep money, you cannot take it out. And another tip is to, if you are getting a money box for your children, perhaps you will want to get something that's transparent, because, when there's visual, they tend to be more encouraged. They can see how much the money is growing. So, it may not work on all children, but it works on a lot of children. Even us and as adults, so when we see that money growing, we're so happy, we're so encouraged. You want to put in more and more and more. So do not have only one money box, have multiple. So children will learn to be more focused, because they have already set their goal, right? This particular money box is for my toy. This one is for something else, and this one is for something else. And always tell the children that whatever money you save, you're supposed to share it with people who are less fortunate. So when they grow up, naturally they know that, okay, there's such thing as zakat. A part of my saving will go to the less fortunate. You don't have to remind your children. And I'm so proud that, I don't have to remind my children to do that now, because they know for sure that this is what we're supposed to do as a good Muslim. We have to pay zakat. But when do we start? Very much earlier. Not when the children are grown up, because it's going to be super duper difficult then. It has to begin now when your children are still small. And that's why I'm so glad that all of you are making that effort to be here today, because it's going to be very, very useful later on. You don't see the result immediately. You'll see it when your children are all grown up. Okay, so I just want to leave everybody with this very famous quote from Muhammad Ali. Impossible is nothing, which Adidas is using at the moment, right? Impossible is nothing. Actually came from Muhammad Ali. Everything is possible if you set your heart into it. Okay, nothing is impossible. Everything can be done, but you have to start early for your children. So on that note, I'll leave, or I'll pass you over to Afifa.
Okay,
thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Miss Suraya, for the sharing very useful tips, which are number 1, needs versus wants, setting goals, and also to start early. Okay, I really like what Miss Suraya actually shared about allowing your child to make decisions, and with the fact, as a parent, so sometimes I also tend to make the decisions for my child, because sometimes it's much convenient that way, right? But I like it. I think what Miss Suraya shared about giving them the more practice they have, the better decision makers they will be. I think that is very impactful for me as a parent. So thank you for the sharing, Miss Suraya.
Most
Okay,
welcome.
so